You know the feeling. It starts maybe a week out, a low-grade hum of dread, almost too quiet to name. You open Facebook and go straight to your settings, not to post, not to scroll, just to make sure your birthday is hidden. Because the last thing you want is a wall full of "Happy Birthday" from people you haven't spoken to in 4 years. And then the questions start. Someone at work, someone in your family, bright-eyed and well-meaning. So what are you doing for your birthday? Any big plans? And something inside you just contracts. You smile, you say something vague. Oh, I'm keeping it low-key this year. And what you actually mean, what you'd never say out loud is, I want it to be a Tuesday. I just want it to be a completely, unremarkably normal Tuesday. I want the world to leave me alone. And then, if you're like a lot of people, the guilt moves in right behind the dread. Because you're supposed to want this, right? You're supposed to light up when people remember. You're supposed to feel special. But you don't. You feel something closer to exposed. And I want to talk about why. Because what's happening in you is not what most people think it is. Let me be clear about something before we go any further. You are not cynical. You are not broken. You are not just bad at being celebrated or immature or difficult. And here's what nobody tells you. This isn't actually about getting older. It's not about the number. It's not about mortality or gray hairs or any of that. Your nervous system is not reacting to aging. It is reacting to the threat of being perceived. There's a very specific kind of anxiety that lives in people who dread their birthdays, and it has almost nothing to do with the passage of time. What it has everything to do with is this: prescribed performance. Society has handed you a script. It says, on this one day you must be joyful. You must be gracious. You must receive attention warmly. You must perform gratitude for being seen. And for some of us, for a lot of us, that script activates something very old and very physical in the body. You have, over the course of your life, developed what I can only describe as an allergy to performative expectation. And like any allergy, the reaction isn't a character flaw. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it learned to do to keep you safe. The problem is just that it can't always tell the difference between a real threat and a birthday. So let's talk about where that comes from. Because once you understand the why, it stops feeling like something wrong with you and starts feeling like something that makes complete, heartbreaking sense. The echo. Here's an idea from developmental psychology that I want you to hold for a moment, because I think it might be one of the most useful things you'll hear. When a child makes an emotional sound, when they cry, when they laugh, when they reach out, they need that sound to echo back from a caregiver to know they are real and that they matter. That echo is how a child learns: I exist, I matter. My inner world is real and it is safe to show it. That echo is how we learn to take up space. But some of us grew up in environments where nothing echoed back. Maybe there was neglect. Maybe there was emotional unavailability. A parent who was physically present but emotionally somewhere else entirely. Maybe the message was subtle. Don't need too much, don't feel too loudly, don't make this about you. Maybe it was overt. Either way, the lesson was the same. You learn to survive by becoming small, by needing nothing, by taking up zero space. And for a long time that worked. It kept the peace. It kept you safe. Now imagine spending your whole life in a room where nothing echoes. And then once a year, society grabs you by the hand, drags you out of that room, puts you under a spotlight, and demands you perform joy. For a nervous system trained to survive by being invisible, A spotlight doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a threat. Prescribed behaviors and literal social pain. When society demands we feel special on a mandated calendar date, it creates prescribed behaviors that actually suck the genuine joy out of the experience. Furthermore, neuroscientists have found that feeling like you are supposed to be celebrating something you don't feel activates the exact same brain regions as literal physical pain. So when you say your birthday feels bad, you are not being dramatic. Your brain is treating it as something that hurts, because on some level it does. The highlight reel grief. There's one more layer here, and it might be the quietest one, but I think for a lot of people, it's the one that actually breaks the surface on birthdays. Birthdays force a reckoning. They force you to look at your life, your relationships, and measure them against something. And here's the uncomfortable thing. What tends to arrive on your birthday is performative attention. People who haven't thought about you in 11 months suddenly send a 2-word message because an app reminded them to. And somewhere beneath all the noise, your nervous system does a very quick, very honest accounting. This is not the connection I actually needed. And if you're someone who grew up without that echo, without that consistent, unconditional sense of being truly known by someone, then birthdays have a way of illuminating that gap with cruel precision. The gap between the deep, unconditional connection the viewer secretly craves and the superficial, performative attention they actually receive on that day. That gap is a kind of grief, and it tends to arrive right on schedule every single year. So here is what I want to say to you, and I want to say it as clearly and gently as I can. You are allowed to hate your birthday. You are allowed to opt out of the performance entirely. The healthiest thing you can possibly do, not the most socially acceptable thing, but the genuinely healthiest thing, is to remove the cultural expectation from the equation altogether. Treat it like a Tuesday. Take the day off if you can. Do something that actually brings you comfort. Watch something you love. Eat something that feels like a hug. Be somewhere quiet. You do not owe anyone a celebration. And here's the truth that I think is worth carrying with you long after this video ends. Real connection, the kind that actually feeds you, the kind that makes you feel genuinely seen, doesn't happen because a calendar demanded it. It happens on a random Thursday afternoon when someone texts you out of nowhere because something reminded them of you. It happens in the unscripted, unforced, unperformative moments that don't have a notification attached to them. That is where you are safe. That is where the echo actually comes back. Your birthday doesn't have to be that day. It just has to be a day. And if you make it through it quietly, on your own terms, doing exactly what you want to do, that is not a failure to celebrate yourself. That is, in its own way, the most honest act of self-knowledge there is. If this resonated with you, if it put words to something you've been quietly carrying around for a while, maybe for years, then it would genuinely mean a lot to me if you subscribed. I make these deep dives regularly. There's also a join button on the channel if you ever want to directly support what I'm doing here. Take care of yourself, especially on Tuesdays.